Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are located. Welcome to our podcast, People First, the Heart of Business, episode 23. I am Gabriela Castro-Smith with Trading Motion. Trading Motion is a workforce strategy firm for the exploration and mining industry. Today, we have a very special guest. I've seen him for some years really engaged with the community, participating in events, and working with his teams on community development and finding new ways of supporting the different communities from Patagonia, Nogales, and Santa Cruz County in Arizona. Pat Risner, President of South32 Hermosa. Welcome to our podcast, Pat, and thank you for accepting my invitation.
No, thank you for having me on. Just looking forward to having this discussion.
Building more than a mine. This is the title of our podcast. Building more than a mine. People, communities, and the future of critical minerals. In this episode, we explore how leadership, people, and responsible development come together to build not only a mine, but also stronger communities and opportunities for the future. South32 Hermosa is building a next generation mine through people, community, relationships, workforce development, safety, and long-term stewardship. Based on South32's public information and the Community Protection and Benefit Agreement, several themes stand out. Building one of the most important critical minerals projects in North America. Developing a mine while simultaneously building community trust. Workforce development in a rural region. Community investment and social license. Safety and culture. Leadership during growth and change. Creating a lasting legacy beyond the life of the mine. Pat, can you explain this agreement to our audience in more detail? How does this agreement move beyond that concept to establish a long-term partnership with local communities?
Yeah, no, it's typically this agreement that we're negotiating with our four local governments, which is Santa Cruz County, the town of Patagonia, and the city of Nogales. It's somewhat similar to what's typically called a good neighbor agreement in industry and in our industry. I think where we're going with it will be a little more than that, but that's the basis of it. And really what it is, if we go back to social license to operate, so obviously the project's permitted for construction and operations and all the state and federal regulatory processes that you have to go to do that. That's good news. However, for us in our approach at Hermosa, we never believed that was enough, that there are additional things we would have to do to secure a social license to operate. We have a diverse group of stakeholders in our local community, up to 12 tribes that have historic affiliation and cultural connections to our area, and a vast array of other stakeholders. And so from day one, we believed that all of those stakeholders need to see that there's shared value in having South32 Hermosa in their community. So they believe there is a net benefit to having us there in terms of whether it's quality of life, community capacity, whatever it may be. And so there's a lot of things we've done to try to accomplish that and make progress on social license, a lot of work on relationships and trust. But this agreement is a pivotal part of that because it will really, it will have two components to it. Reason we went away from good neighbor agreement is to be more specific about community protection and benefits agreements. So part of this will be, even though we have all state federal permits in hand, there's a lot of requirements from that. We've voluntarily committed to a lot of things in the federal permitting process that we think go above and beyond what's typically required. We still sort of see that as the floor. And so what are remaining concerns that the community might have around our activities, and are there supplemental things we can do on top of or beyond what just the regulatory requirements and permits require? to alleviate or satisfy some of those concerns. So there are a number of things we're doing and negotiating that around air, water, biodiversity, things like that, that will go in. And there'll be specific sort of programmatic commitments, might be additional monitoring, might be studies, things like that. So that's the protections piece. And I think, I think we expect that to be robust and be kind of a benchmark that we can look to in the industry for how we go beyond just what permits require to address concerns. The other part of it is what you'd probably typically see in a good neighbor agreement. It's the benefits part, but for us, social investment is a number of different things. So we've had the University of Arizona do a capacity assessment in the county to look at what are the immediate community capacity needs above and beyond what might be required with our presence. We've executed an initial stage community investment agreement to address some of those immediate needs, but there'll be an element of that in the benefits portion. So basic county services, emergency services, healthcare, education, housing, child care, just the basic needs of the community. How do we make sure there's an uplift there? Then there's a long-term view. So one of the things I think that have been a challenge for the industry for a long time, at the end of the day, these are non-renewable resources. Even if it's 50, 60, 70 years, there'll be a day when we're not mining these resources. And we want the community to thrive economically and socially beyond that point. And so how do we make investments over a 40, 50, 60, even potentially 70-year life so that the community can realize the vision it has for itself post-mining and have a thriving economy with people employed, and and we avoid a drop-off that has happened at times in communities when mining is done. And so those are some of the big elements that we believe we can things we can accomplish, and elements that we want to include in this agreement, and hoping by the early in the new calendar year we'll be to the point where we can sign the full agreement, and it's a really important part of social license.
Sure, sure. And I think your team, South32 Hermosa, you are doing a great, great job, because what is more important in a project than people?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I think, one of the, it's important in all aspects of it. So having the right people on your team that know how to do this well, that can develop relationships and build trust. But going back to kind of fundamentally why we do what we do at South32, we have a purpose as a company where we talk about improving people's lives for now and generations through the development of natural resources, and it very deliberately has a statement about improving people's lives. So there is a people-centered focus to it. So these are resources the world needs. They're critical minerals that have supply chain risks for the United States. And we can address that, but we want to do it in a way that lifts people up, lifts communities up where they believe there's value in us being there.
And on this aspect that you mentioned about the new generation, how is South32 helping this new generation with creating jobs, helping them to maybe have some training that it's not possible to have if the mine is not there? So how are you doing with the new generation and the workforce, the job creation for them?
Yeah, so going back to social license, another really important aspect of it are the jobs these projects create, but we have to think about it a little deeper than just creating jobs and just employing 800 to 900 people at an average salary of $90,000 a year. Yes, that's all very impactful, but the host community that's impacted by our activities has to be the primary beneficiary of that to the fullest extent possible. So that's one element of workforce that we've been very mindful of that's driven our strategy. The second element is we have a math problem in the industry. I mean, if we're going to grow and develop more Hermosas, and I'm encouraged to see other projects starting to move forward, we've had a significant retirement and exodus from the industry. If we don't start expanding the portion of society that we train, develop, and bring into our industry, and make it all of society and not just maybe a narrow slice we've looked at in the past, then we're not going to have the workforce we need to operate all these projects safely and efficiently. And so those are two things that have driven our strategy, which is very much how do we home grow a workforce that's reflective of our host community, that looks like our host community and prioritizes our host community. And so we very much, so part of that's a commitment we made that at least 80% of our long-term workforce will be existing residents of Santa Cruz County. And it kind of puts some context around that. We're not talking about a community like the Globe area or Superior area or Morenci or Safford or Baghdad, places that have had mining. Historically, there really hasn't been modern mining in Santa Cruz County at all. It has a long mining history, but it goes back to the mid 1800s to maybe the middle of last century. And so we don't have people with mining experience in the local community to draw on. So we've had to get a bit more creative and innovative. So how do we use technology and how do we stand up workforce development programs locally? Santa Cruz County has had such a small tax base that it doesn't have its own community college. It has the only provisional college in the country, I believe. So all the workforce training programs, if you wanted to get a skill and you're from Nogales High School or Rio Rico High School, you've had to go to Tucson and do it through Pima Community College. So what we've done is prioritize standing up local workforce programs delivered in Nogales. We don't want to train local people in Tucson. We want to train them in Santa Cruz County, close to home. So we've worked with the Provisional College and with Pima Community College to deliver workforce programs in Santa Cruz County and Nogales. We have our first cohort of electricians graduating next month. We're kicking off another cohort at the same time, plus a new automated industrial technology program. Those are the first skilled trades training programs in the history of Santa Cruz County, and all our students and cohorts are local residents of Santa Cruz County. What that's going to give us, we think, is, as I said, a workforce that reflects our host community, which is really important from a social license standpoint. But also, I think a lot of new people to the industry, and from a culture standpoint, we believe that's a game changer. We believe it will make us unique in terms of our culture and how we work, and that's an advantage for us in the industry in terms of safety and performance and lots of things that are important to us.
Yeah, and I think that you are an example. South32 is an example for many other companies. The way you are doing, because as you mentioned, it's for the future. It will be hard to find the right skilled workers for the mining operations. And what would you tell your colleagues? How would you attract the new generation to choose mining as a career? That we see that it's at this moment is hard. What would you recommend?
Yeah, and maybe before I answer that, just closing off the previous thought, the math problem I talked about, if we don't home grow a workforce, to try to go elsewhere and convince 500 or 600 experienced people to come here, that'll be challenging, and it'll also put a lot of pressure on our host community in terms of county services and support and that sort of thing. So there are many other drivers why that's important. But your question about how do we convince people, I think this goes back to something that we're focused on that, again, has multiple objectives. We have been very deliberate about trying to present something different to our stakeholders. So we all know when we start talking about mining or developing a new mine that things pop into people's head in communities and society. It's typically grounded in the past. It's probably grounded in where we were when I started my career 30 years ago, or maybe even way before then. And so I think one of the things that's important to attract new people into our industry and to, the why they should come work with us is we're going through a transformation. So we're embracing innovation and technology, just like any other industry. Plus, we're doing things differently that are very different to what they might have seen in the past from a sustainability standpoint, all of those things. So one of the ways in which we have confidence we can home grow a workforce is the use of technology. And so most of our primary production processes, or all of our primary production processes underground, will either be semi-autonomous, autonomous, or remotely operated, as will our process plant. So we're building in a facility in Nogales called Centro, which will be our remote operating center. The industry's had remote operating centers for a while, but we will sort of control or operate all of our primary production processes from Centro, located in the community, close to home, close to schools, close to childcare, close to support networks. That reduces barriers to people accessing employment. So it makes it easier, we think, to bring new people into the industry that might not have thought of working for us. But also that's technology that's not necessarily mining technology. So a lot more digital skills, a lot more advanced process control, remote operations, automation, things that probably appeal more to the next generation. Um, I think the message is we use a lot of the same technologies many other industries that they might be looking at use. And we also do it in a different way. So we can do it more sustainably. We'll use 90% less water than a typical mining operation, 95% less disturbance than what we see from historical mining operations, battery electric fleets underground, a roadmap to get to net zero emissions. So I think what's important, if I were to sum it up for the next generation and attracting them, is this is something very different. We embrace innovation and technology in a similar way to most industries. And so there's really a place for everyone and their digital skills, some of which are probably more transferable in terms of a long-term career.
And how many people are going to work in that center?
So we'll have 200 plus working at Centro that won't be going to the mine every day. And so I think there's people in communities that maybe wouldn't jump on a bus and ride 30 miles out to the site and go 3,000 feet underground to work, that would certainly consider working in an environment like that that's close to support network and home in the community. And so additionally, some of these roles, we can train people that don't have mining experience in 18 months to do these roles. And so that's another thing that's an example of how using innovation and technology can help with local workforce, because technology can be an enabler to training and developing skills you need quicker, so that you can, ramp that workforce up. We're going to have experienced mining people for sure, but we will also be bringing, we think, a lot more people into the industry that haven't worked in it before for all of those reasons. Yeah.
And for this new generation, they don't need to have any training or skill if they want to work with Hermosa and be trained by your team.
So we'll certainly be training people that don't have a background in mining and don't necessarily start with mining skills. We will deliver those programs in Santa Cruz County, but through technology, we can accelerate that training period of time so that we believe, bring on, a local workforce quicker. We're also going to partner with our contractors that will do some of the early operational work, to work with us in developing local people, as an example, with underground skills to actually work underground. So they will have to have skills, but we'll be able to provide that in the local community and accelerate that journey.
Okay. I would like to talk about diversity now. It's a good topic, and I work with diverse teams, and I think that diversity enriches a team and a community and a project and a mine in production. So what is South32 Hermosa doing regarding diversity?
Yeah, I think this is where I think having a workforce that reflects our host community, when I said earlier, we think some of this is a game changer and an advantage. And I personally firmly believe this. I think we're an industry that has struggled to change over the years. We get stuck in our ways a lot. We have lots of entrenched views. Some of that's grounded for the right reason. We've learned lessons from a safety standpoint, but I do think we make better decisions when you involve more people that have diverse experience, diverse backgrounds, diversity in culture, where they come from, life experiences, all of that. I think we make better decisions the more diverse views and divergent views you introduce into the discussions. And so that's why I say I think having more people that are new to mining, which inherently will be a more diverse workforce. So I talked about the need to attract talent from all of society, not just the portion of society maybe that mining was appealing to when I started in the industry. I think the fact that we will be able to access talent from all of society will inherently give us a more diverse workforce, inherently bring more diverse views with people from different life experiences, which I think help us make better decisions. And when we think about delivering on our safety guarantee so that people go home safe and well every day, or being productive underground or wherever, when we have more diverse views and opinions, we engage in good, healthy, constructive debate around things and consider all those opinions, then I think we make better decisions. And ultimately, that leads to a safer, more efficient business. So I think it's really critical. And I think that's why I said it's a game changer for us. Our host community is in Santa Cruz County, I think is, 85+%, of Mexican American descent. And we want our workforce to reflect that community. We already at site, I think more than half our workforce at site are local community members. We have one team in particular that was probably our first all local team going back to like 2020. So all local residents of Santa Cruz County, none of them had worked in mining before. We taught them how we work. They've developed, we've given them, they're clear on expectations. They've learned our ways of working. They've learned how to work safely. They've improved how they work to improve safety. And to kind of give you a sense, that group, when we acquired the project back in 2018, they were having a soft tissue injury in the course of their work every 5 or 6 weeks. They've gone like 4 years without an injury now. And these are people that hadn't worked in mining before, far more productive. So it gives us a lot of confidence. And I think it's a good example of what I'm talking about. These are fresh eyes for our industry that haven't been in our industry before. And they're making it better from a safety and productivity standpoint.
And but I am curious about that. When you talk to all people from the community, what were they thinking about mining before? Because it's for a community where there's no mine, a mine, it's hard to understand the good things that a mining company can do for the community.
Yeah, I think the attention almost always immediately goes to the environmental legacy of mines from, the late 19th, early 20th century, and, even into the latter part of last century where, there were things that weren't done the way we manage, the way we do them today. And so it often goes to sustainability concerns, probably safety as well. So I think understanding the improvements we've made in safety. One of the things that attracted me to come do this with South32 is the way we talk about safety. We have what we call a safety guarantee. And it talks about we all guarantee everyone will go home safe and well. And it's a really strong statement. It's more than just safety is our top priority or safety over production or anything like that. It's a guarantee, and it's a much more affirmative statement that is more emotive, and I think it's one of the things that attracted me to be here. And so we talk about a lot about what that means in practice in terms of safety performance. And so I think that's one thing that comes to people's mind. But often I think it is the sustainability track record of the industry. While there's not been modern mining in Santa Cruz County, there was mining late 1850s through the Civil War period into the early 1900s, and there is some legacy pollution in the Patagonia Mountains from that. Some of our local communities aware of that. One of the first things we did when we came on site is we worked with the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality under their voluntary remediation program, and rehabilitated and cleaned up 2.2 million tons of historic mine tailings that had been placed in and around our site, but from the 1930s to 50s, that had become a surface water pollution issue. And we built the first new dry stack tailings facility of its type in the U.S. And cleaned that up, spent about $40 million. And so it's given us the chance to show the community what's possible with next generation mining and advancement of practices. But those are the kinds of things we always have to overcome. And that's why I go back to, we have to present something different from a sustainability standpoint, from a social license standpoint, because those are the things that comes to people's mind that we have to overcome right up front to develop trust and relationships with stakeholders.
Yeah, yesterday I visited a mine in Eureka, Nevada. There was an event, and I was talking to the people from the mine, and we were thinking about doing something about the myths of mining.
Yeah.
Because it's what people think about mining, to show this is what you think about mining, and this is the reality about mining, because people in mining, we know what it is about, but outside the industry, people have a very, very different conception of what mining is. So we were discussing about that, what you think about mining and what mining really is now in the 21st century.
Yeah, we need to do Mythbusters, but I agree, and I think that leads me to something else that the industry hasn't been good at that I think we're getting a lot better at, and like what you and I are doing today is part of it. Is for most of my career we didn't tell our story very well. Actually, we weren't good at communications. We didn't have a strong narrative. We didn't think about narrative. We just didn't tell people the good things we do, and we weren't very good at winning hearts and minds around that. And so all that was ever known was the negative. And I think there was a period in my career where if you kind of, hid in the background and nobody knew you were out there, that was success. And that can't be today. That's not a recipe for success these days. So these kinds of conversations and everything else we do to tell our story. And that's why our purpose is so important. Talking about how developing natural resources can improve people's lives and not just provide the mineral commodities we need for the clean energy transition or defense purposes or infrastructure, but that we can do it in a way where there is shared value and lift communities up. We never talked about that. We weren't very good at telling the story, and we're getting better, and that's changing. And so I think that's something that has to continue to evolve. Conversations like this help, but absolutely, we're always going to be overcoming that. We put ourselves in that situation, I think, but I think we're getting much better at it, and we are able to present something to society and stakeholders and potentially people that might want to work for us that is very, very different to the past.
Exactly. Yeah, it was a good conversation. So we are almost at the end of our podcast, and I have my last question. You as a leader, 25 years from now, when people reflect on the legacy of South 32 Hermosa, what do you hope they will say about its contribution to people, communities, and future generations?
Well, well, I will say this, at this point, I'm more than 30 years into my career. These are the things that drive you more at this point in my career, maybe than any other point, because you spend more time thinking about these things and the good things that what we do can do for society and people. So this is a really important part of it. I think on a local level, um, I would like to think it will be that the communities look back upon 25 years and true, there's no longer any speculation or debate. They truly believe their community was better off having us there. That quality of life is better, that opportunity is better, and that it has absolutely delivered positive life-changing uplift for them and their families, that it's helped with the loss of talent flight from the community, which is happening significantly in that part of Arizona. That talented, educated people have opportunities to come back and work and live close to their families. That people have been given opportunities to uplift their skills and have a career at home that they might have not thought they could have before. And that everything we're doing from a sustainability standpoint has been a part of setting a new standard and showing the industry a new way of doing things, that makes it more acceptable to stakeholders in society and helps not just us, but that we're a part of an industry shift that allows us to be better at securing social license to operate, and that this project has been one of the things that is a catalyst to achieve that. And so that's what we're setting out to do. That's what sort of gets me out of bed excited every day, is the possibility of that. So certainly I would like to think at that point in time they'll look back and see that that's what we've all achieved together.
Yeah. And on my side, what I would like to see is the next generations being excited to be in the mining industry, not this generation that it's seeing innovation and working in a different way, like as you mentioned that you were working when you began your career. But the next generation and the next generation say,
Yeah.
I want to be in the mining industry.
So along those lines, I worked in another part of the industry. I worked up on the Navajo Nation for a long time. We were operating on tribal lands. 90+% of our workforce were Navajo tribal members, communities that had lots of needs and had talent flight similar to what we're facing here. And there were moments there where we had 3 generations of a family in the workforce at a time. And I again, in 25 years, we could have that here. And the generational uplift of just one of those jobs, enabling education for the next generation, like you, I hope that next generation also wants to come work for us. And then there's another round of generational uplift, and then that generation. But that's the opportunity we have here. But just one of those jobs, the resources it provides families to, for uplift, even just access to education that comes from it, is profound and impacts lives forever. And so I hope that's what we see here, 3 generations in the workplace at one time. And ultimately, someone who was born and raised in Santa Cruz County is in roles like mine, and is the general manager of the operation. And these businesses are ultimately led by people that come from the host community.
Yeah. So, Pat, I am really, really honored to have you in our podcast. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation. And let's continue enhancing this industry that gives a lot to people and to communities, and to show the best practices all around the world.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a good start that we can have a conversation like this and really not talk at all about what we're mining, all about people in the communities, because I think that's what's important about the shift that we're all making right now. So thanks for the opportunity. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you very much, Pat. And thank you to our audience. Have a good afternoon, evening, or morning.